had really hit home. And for many investors, the final insult was this. The controversial share option scheme meant that the decline in share value could actually benefit Eircom executives. We'll be assessing all the day's developments, talking to a stockbroker about what happens next, and hearing from the man at the eye of the storm, Alfie Kane. But first, let's get a flavour of proceedings at the RDS from our reporter, Fergal Keane.
Welcome you all to the first annual general meeting of Aircom plc.
It was always going to be stormy, and it didn't disappoint. From the very start today, the Aircom chairman, Ray McSharry, did his best to keep order at the meeting, but some people really needed to get things off their chests.
Because the headhunters of other companies have taken the cream of your executives and good managers and left us with what's left.
Every time I think of the directors of this firm, the word gobshite comes to mind.
I do not see a dynamic team leading a high-tech company. What I see in front of me appears to be an assembly of tired old masons.
One of the first speakers was Senator Shane Ross, who had scathing criticism for the Aircom board.
And Mr. Chairman, I think I should say at the very outset that the concession that you made, and it is a concession to the people in this hall, for which we should note of the options vesting at €3 is a token from the table, and it's not enough. The reality is clear. The reality is clear. If you had come to us today and said 390, where the small shareholders have suffered, that would have been enough and that would have been fair. But that's not what's going on. We've been asked to accept a concession which is not enough and not acceptable. Now, I'd like to ask the fundamental question, and this is about questions, and this is what this meeting is about. Cui bono? Who has benefited from this company since it floated? Exactly, the boys. Because who has benefited? Has it been the consumer? No, we've already heard consumer complaints. Aircom is littered with consumer complaints. Has it been the shareholders who've seen their shares drop by 40%? No, it hasn't. The only people who are guaranteed to have benefited are the directors who've taken out enormous payments, unprecedented in my life, that I've seen from any public company, and I've been involved in this for a very long time.
Then came some other familiar voices.
Thanks. Your name, please?
Tony Gregory, Chairman.
Sorry.
I did buy some shares in the company. And can I say it's the only company I ever bought a share in, and I bought the shares in it because I thought it was going to be a people's company with tens of thousands of small shareholders, and with no fat cats. I thought that was a commitment, but obviously that is not the case. I don't have the expertise of Senator Ross on this, but I do know some basic facts, and the only question really that I want to put to the chair, and that is, does he not accept that this AGM is to a large degree a charade, in that none of the concerns of the people, the mass of the people who have attended here, are genuinely going to be addressed. Nothing that is said here is going to influence the decisions of this company. And when I say the concerns, I'm talking about the outrageous bonus payments paid to executives.
You as shareholders are very fortunate to have the quality of people that you have on this board, and the experience and the expertise that they bring to it from the different walks of life.
But in the end, it was a day for the ordinary shareholder who could get up and ask questions, and questions were asked.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't well educated myself. I didn't like going to school. I regret that I didn't go further. Like yourself, and I admire for how well you got on. But I was hoping that maybe my 3 children might get a little bit easier than what I did. And I'm disgusted, not so much with yourselves as I am with myself, that I had the false confidence when we listened that we should all get involved, and it was a people's opportunity for to get involved in shares.
All I can say is this, that you're a thundering disgrace.
And that report from Fergal Keane at a stormy RDS. Well, joining us now to discuss today's developments is 5-7 Live's business correspondent Shane Kenny. Shane, first of all, to bring us up to date, is it actually over yet?
No, it isn't over. Now, I've been in studio here for the last 10-15 minutes putting Alfie Kane's interview together, so I don't know whether they've achieved a resolution. I would doubt it very much at this stage, Rachel, because they have to count all the proxy votes. The votes have been taken. In other words, the shareholders down there have cast their votes, but they have to add up all the millions and millions of proxy votes, and they'll also have to double-check that to ensure that no mistakes are made.
Now, there were 7 motions, I think, Shane, before the meeting, and we always knew that not all of them were going to be contentious, but that those that were really going to cause ructions, and one of the most contentious related to the share option scheme, which we've heard a lot about, and the price that they would be granted at.
Well, indeed. It was interesting, though, that particular motion came at the very end of the meeting. It was motion 7, and at that stage it had been going on for 3.5 hours, and people had begun to leave the hall. Their points had been made, and a lot of shareholders didn't feel it was worthwhile, I think, at that stage sticking around. They could see what was going to happen, because on the face of the results, the poll results that we were given by Ray McSharry, the chairman, each one of the 7 resolutions was carried by over 1 billion proxy votes. And, you know, it was a handful of millions of votes, anything from 11 to 28 million votes against various resolutions. So the result of the meeting was a foregone conclusion, and most of the fire had taken place earlier, as you heard in Fergal's report there. The board, the management, the company for its strategic vision was excoriated on top of, you know, all of the criticisms that you heard made about the fact that the executives were getting fat bonuses, and now share options and even free shares were on the way, despite the fact that they had lost money. Some of it was quite painful to hear. For instance, the story of a man who'd put his funeral money he's an 81-year-old man, into Aircom shares, and now had lost 40% of it, and was wondering whether he could pay for his funeral or his relatives could pay at the end of the day. And another man who very plaintively spoke about the fact that he bought Aircom shares for his children, and he was wondering what he was going to say to his children, and he in fact criticised himself. He said
that
he'd been
man
duped.
we heard on the tape there.
Yeah.
I thought that was really touching.
It was incredible. I mean, it was a very moving moment, particularly because, you know, he was faulting himself at the same time. You know, he was wondering how the hell did he get into this situation.
Now, did anybody at the meeting, Shane, feel, though, that the government was in any way to blame, because of the sort of well-publicised fact at this stage that everybody seemed to think that the initial share price was too high, or was all the ire focused at the board?
Oh, no, indeed. Mary O'Rourke came in for some very, very strong criticism, and people said that she was wholly responsible for the kind of hype which had gone on, which, you know, drove people to get into the shares. There was criticism of the fact that the media campaign used Irish language music. It was striking a chord in people's hearts, touching Irish people. It was being pushed as the people's company, as you probably heard from Tony Gregory there, the people's company, not for fat cats. I mean, a lot of people obviously felt whatever Alfie had said about the fact that it was overpriced, and there was obviously a clear battle between the government and the company about that. Ray McSharry confirmed that they wrote to the government about it, and I'm quite surprised that that hasn't appeared in any Freedom of Information disclosures so far. But that aside, Mary O'Rourke did take a lot of stick from this meeting.
And what about the way that the government decided to vote with its admittedly quite small shareholding?
Well, The government decided to vote the way they intended to vote. I mean, Mary O'Rourke had made her views clear. I don't think anybody really was too concerned, Rachel, about how the government was going to vote at the end of the day. What they wanted to do was get...